listening to WMNJ Madison 88.9 FM The Forest here at Drew University, which is the home of Drew Theological Seminary, founded in 1867.
All right.
So we're going to have a little conversation about seminary.
All right,
since,
seminary.
You've done this thing before and
Yes.
you can give us some words of wisdom. So tell us, we know you went to Bethune-Cookman. What happened in between Bethune-Cookman and seminary? And
My dad had said, you need to go to seminary. And
your dad does that.
yes. And I was just like, what are you talking about? My pastor at the church that I was attending while I was in college had not gone to seminary.
Okay.
But he could expound the word like nobody's business. I mean, he would preach for an hour and a half and you just did not care because you were just so engrossed in the presentation and in the explanation of the word.
Okay.
So I was just like, Dad, I don't need to go to seminary. If God's called me, you know, he'll just give me what I need. I can study on my own, you know, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And he was just like, no, you need to go to seminary.
Right.
So we went back and forth on that. And after I graduated from college, I took a year off.
Okay.
And, you know, I worked and I was weighing my options and trying to figure out what I was going to do. And my dad not only said you need to go to seminary, but he said you need to go to Colgate, Rochester, Crozier Theological Seminary, which is in Rochester, New York. And that's where he went. So my dad took me to on a tour of Colgate. And I hated it. It's the school has a very Gothic feel to it, and I was just like, no way. And I told all my friends, I said, you know what? If God wants me to go to Colgate, He's gonna have to come down here and change my mind Himself.
Go ahead. I know that.
That's what I said, and that was what I was standing by. I said, that is the only way that I am going to Colgate. God will have to literally come down here Himself and change my mind. My friends were like, whoa, you know, Alan, you better watch it.
Right.
You know? And I said, well, that's the only way I'm going to know that it's God. And one day, during that year that I was off in between school, I had just gotten off the phone with a friend. I had just finished telling her that God's going to have to come down here and change my mind.
Careful.
And it was like the presence of God descended in the room. And literally, as real as I'm talking with you, 1 minute I'm saying I'm not going to Colgate, and it was like God just flicked a switch in my head. And the next moment I said, you know what? I'm going to Colgate.
Wow.
And it was just like that.
Wow.
And so then I applied, got in, and started Colgate in the fall of '97.
Okay.
So I knew that God wanted me there.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And that's the foundation for everything that I was going to experience. All the opposition, all the obstacles that come with graduate school and with seminary. There were times at night when I'd be crying.
Yes.
You know, and guys don't like to admit, you know, about crying.
Right.
But there were times when I was crying because I'd be in class and have a professor tell me that a particular passage, how I had learned it from my own dad, who's a seminary trained and, you know, has his D-Min and study, that how I had learned it. The professor says, no, that's not right. This is what it is. Right. And so we would go back and forth, and so I would wrestle with that. And I'd be in my room saying, Lord, the text seems pretty obvious. This is how I've always heard it expounded, but this professor says something else that I don't see here.
Right.
But the professor is the one who's teaching the class, who has the PhD, who, you know, is the authority. So what's going on? And so I would wrestle with that. You know, I have challenges with my faith in terms of being able to study the scriptures, to find out what God is saying, and then be able to stand on that. And there were some cases when professor would open up a whole new line of thought that was beneficial. And then there were cases where professor would go off on the deep end, and you just, you know, you take the good and you take the bad, and you throw out what doesn't work, and you keep going.
Yeah, I always describe this this experience in my life, and it's, you know, not long yet, but I describe it as the hardest thing that I've ever done. I've done graduate work before. I was, you know, I have an MFA, so people think I was, you know, running around painting and stuff all day, and I did. But we, you know, I also had to write a thesis in addition to the art that I created, defending the art. So I know what it's like to do academic work, and the academic work is tough. But the emotional work is even harder in seminary. Like you said, there are things that you learned a certain way all of your life, and all of a sudden you hear them differently, and it blows your mind.
Blows your mind. Completely.
And so you're a testimony, and I mean, there are so many other people that I know, but I always have to say to myself, okay, God brought me here. God knew this was going to happen. I'm going to make it out on the other side. And so, you know, and hold on to the fact that, you know, you can hold on to the fact that you knew it was where God wanted you to be, because He changed your mind.
He changed my mind.
I know that this is where God wants me to be, because just the way it happened. And so that's the thing you have to hold on to. So for all of you seminarians who are listening, and this is a tough place, we're at the end of the semester, so much work to be done. We would just encourage you.
Yes.
To hold on and to trust God and
keep pushing.
Keep pushing. And you know, don't forget your relationship with the Word. You know, it's not just an academic tool, but it's a devotional tool. It's a way that you get to know God. You know, we learn about God here, but continue getting to know God, to be in relationship with God.